Tony Britt Spotter Charts serves sports media exclusively with customized cheat sheets for both prep and game time. Serving over 350 clients at all major networks, 23 NFL teams, and 68 college football programs, including Division II, Division III, and NAIA schools. Variable pricing ensures that small schools receive the same VIP service as ABC, CBS, ESPN, Fox, NBC, and the NFL Network. Well, welcome to Voices in the Stands. I'm Matthew Nickel. I'm hosting here today. Carlo is out sick, so hopefully he is doing better here very soon. So, all right, well, hey, great weekend of games. So we got a lot to talk about. I know we've been very active in our group chat here. So without any further ado, let's kick it to Tony and David.
Thanks, Matt. And Dave, I mean, geez, what a tale of two games, right? One was a little bit of a nail biter back and forth, and the other was kind of what a lot of people kind of expected to be. But I did want to briefly just because Mikey deserves all the respect for going out there and being our on-field correspondent to give details on the game. But I just want to kind of really to briefly kind of go over the 2025 season for the Johns Hopkins Blue Jays. I mean, geez, semifinal loss is that's the easiest data point to grab, but it's also the least informative, right? The real story, it kind of lives in the analytics and the emotion behind the team. I mean, from a number standpoint, they were one of the most complete teams in Division III football. Hopkins consistently kind of control games in the margins that matter the most in efficiency and discipline and situational dominance. I mean, their type of football was that type to grind you out and take 8 minutes off the clock, right? That's what they were doing, and they were doing it, week in and week out. They weren't just winning; they were dictating, time of possession, third down conversion rates, red zone execution, turnovers. Hopkins lived right on the right side of the charts the whole season. That's not luck. That was straight up structure, right? They were executing. Defensively, this group, they thrived on disruption. Not always flashy, but relentlessly sound, gap integrity, leverage tackling, all the kind of the hallmarks, making opponents earn every inch. The analytics show it, but long drives forced, low explosive play rates allowed, and a defense that tightened when the field's shortened. I mean, in December, that's kind of how you want to survive, right? Offensively, Hopkins operated with a balance and intent. They didn't chase the highlights; they chased efficiency. Staying on schedule, avoiding negative plays, winning first downs. The advanced metrics tell us that this is a team comfortable playing from ahead, and they're capable of responding when the momentum shifted. And we kind of saw that this week. I mean, they would probably prefer to kind of just hold on to the ball the whole game and just give it over here and there, but they weren't afraid to sling it right when they needed to, and that's maturity. This is when the emotion comes in. Analytics can explain how you get to the semifinal, but they can't really explain how long it takes or what it really takes to actually live there year after year, right? And they're a program that are now consistently kind of living in that space. That locker room carries a lot of, weight of expectations differently than most. Every opponent circles Hopkins on the calendar. I mean, they have to. When you see that you're playing a team like that, you want to get, after it after a team like that. Every road environment is hostile. Every playoff run comes with the pressure of history. And yet this team, they still showed up with consistency, humility, and purpose, which kind of made me a fan in the postseason when I kind of, put my quarterbacks versus cancer Bucks behind them. So the semifinal loss hurts because it's a standard, this is standard is the championship level. Every team at this point, that's the goal. There is no other goal, in that pain, and that's not failure. That's just proof of investment. Proof that this program doesn't measure success by participation trophies or moral victories. It measures it by how close they come to the ultimate goal and how willing they are to chase it again and again and again, year after year. So for the seniors this season, it represents the years of unseen work, the winter lifts, the film sessions, the injuries played through, and the leadership moments that never really see a stat sheet. And for the younger players, they literally witnessed a master class in what Hopkins standard actually demands. So for the program as a whole, the data and emotion tell all the same story. This wasn't a team that fell short. This was a team that belonged, that competed, and that left the field knowing that the margin at the top is razor thin, and man, were they close. It came down to that one play. So very few teams get to experience that truth. Even fewer can earn that right to kind of feel that pain, and John Hopkins did. So shout out to them. And excellence has a cost, and I'm sure that they're going to be back, and we're going to hear a lot of those players. But I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah, pretty good recap, Tony. And one of the things that's really interesting is we always have this conversation about the top of D3 and then how big the gap is between the next. And when we try to pigeonhole teams in and kind of lay it all out, it's pretty tough. But when you get to this part of the season, you've got obviously enough evidence to start looking at it. Hopkins has had a great year. Uh, I think once you look at it, the final four teams were probably the top four teams. There's within the top 10, a lot of good, high quality programs. And so North Central takes on John Carroll, who had lost earlier in the season to Hopkins. And it wasn't like this huge blowout, but it was an opportunity, I think, for John Carroll to see what they needed to do in this new conference. They had a big out of conference game with Hopkins, and probably moving conferences and forcing them to adjust every week to a new team probably did them well. When they came back and met Mount Union in the playoffs and won that game, I believe it probably came from a lot of work that they did this season that was new work preparing every time for a new opponent. They didn't have all those tendencies in history to go off of. And I think it made them a better program. And, I said to people coming into this game, I'm like, this is not going to be a Susquehanna type game from last year. John Carroll's a solid program. We did get out to a big lead, and some people were saying, "Are you sure about that?" But when you kind of go back and you break it all down and you look at it, it wasn't. I mean, North Central was completely in control of the game, clearly on the scoreboard. But you can't sit there and say John Carroll was not in the game at all. So we know North Central scored the first 31 points. It was looking very, very strong. I mean, opening drive, they come out and they haven't been overwhelmingly successful on the first drives this season, but here they were, 10 plays, 87 yards. Awesome. Garrett Wilson set the tone immediately. He was 5 of 5, 47 yards. He distributed the ball, staying on schedule. There were a couple penalties, brushed him off like it was nothing, overcame it, finished it off with a shovel pass to Grant McAtee. Here we go. The running game also on that first drive, 55 yards on 5 carries, 11 yards a clip. Man, I think anyone would take that. Next possession, boom. It wasn't long. It was 3 plays, including a 71-yard strike to Jack Rummel, longest play of the season. And before you know it, it's 14-0 after one quarter. John Carroll had crossed midfield, got to the North Central 43 on the first drive. They got to midfield on their second, showing, they belong in the semifinal. I mean, it's not like they were 3-and-out, but both drives stalled. And from that moment, the game kind of tilted for the balance of the first half. A hurry from J.P. Sullivan on second down for the first drive, forced an incomplete, another incomplete, brought on the punt team. The second drive, they just got over midfield. Video review, the officials were 0 for 3. Video reviews, they were trying to spot the ball, and it was obvious that they were spotting the ball incorrectly. And immediately the booth buzzed down. And after they corrected them twice, it's funny how the officials got a little bit better. So I kind of chuckled at that. And then there was a call. They were saying later the guy had stepped out of bounds before he fumbled. He clearly didn't. So they had to overrule that. So they were 0 for 3. But in any event, J.P. Sullivan, man, I'm telling you, the guy was just on fire. That second drive, they're just over midfield, and so they've got a 4th and 2, and guess who's there? J.P. Sullivan knocks down the pass on 4th and 2 to turn the ball over. He says, "No way, not today, not in my house." So at this point, 2 drives in, John Carroll had thrown 13 passes and they had run the ball one time, once in 2 drives. So on the other hand, North Central, 2 drives in, 6 for 6 passing, 118 yards, 7 rushes, 78 yards, and a 14-0 lead. Next drive, 5 plays, 56 yards, 2:49 off the clock, 21-0 lead. So now let's look at this for a second. Let's take a look at the first 3 drives. North Central came out completely prepared for what they needed to do. So they're 9-9 passing, 168 yards, 9 rushes for 84 yards. They had almost 11 minutes of possession, and in that 11 minutes, 252 total yards. Coming into the game, John Carroll was giving up an average of 221. So they had already exceeded it by almost 30 yards. And we were just barely into the second quarter. So North Central does not have a problem moving the ball and scoring, and they showed it right there. Meanwhile, John Carroll, they were 16-21 for passing, but they'd only run the ball 5 times. Problem is their passes were east and west. They weren't down the field. Maybe three. But, this dinking and dunking thing, we've seen this now 3 weeks in a row. Lacrosse did the same thing. Bethel did the same thing. The teams are showing a huge amount of respect for North Central's D-line. They don't want to run into it, and they don't want to drop back and rely on needing time to find receivers because they're not comfortable that they're going to have that time. So once we kind of do some back and forth, we get down to under 2 minutes in the first half. And clearly this is where John Carroll's like, hey, we're down 21-0. It's under 2 minutes. This is that middle 8 minutes of the game, right? So they want to score. They're going to get the ball coming out of the second half thinking we can make this a game. Well, the very first play, they run a screen pass. Now, here's JP Sullivan. The dude's been getting double teamed all game. And all of a sudden, no pressure. He sniffs that out like I sniff out breakfast, okay? He immediately backs up, puts his head on a swivel, finds the receiver coming across, hits the screen pass, gets the guy, takes him down for a 1 yard loss. I mean, the guy, he does this stuff, and it's instinctive. He's amazing. It's no wonder he's an All-American, and he just does stuff that doesn't show up in the box score. And was perfect. A little bit later in that drive, they made some success. John Carroll gets down to the North Central 26, and then guess who? Guess who breaks through? Puts pressure on Septenfelter, and he's going down. And for some reason, instead of taking the sack and living to fight another day, he tries to wing the ball, and he wings it right to Eli Rennick. Eli Rennick, a defensive end, takes the ball, runs it back 60 yards for his second pick 6 of the season. The other one, by the way, Matt might remember this, happened in the first play of the second half against Augustana. And
shut up.
Shut
up. Talk about getting the hook really quick as soon as
absolutely. Well, at that point, North Central stops them to open the second half. They kick a field goal. At this point, it's 31-0. John Carroll's not been able to get anything going at that point, and the game was pretty much on cruise control from there on out. And, the great thing about this game, and when you look at it, is on the passing game, North Central was able to involve so many more receivers. Jack Rummel had a day. He was outstanding. Grant McAtee, the tight ends, even caught a ball. It was great. And Donovan McNeil, holy smokes. The kid, again, what do you have, like 160 yards or something? 18 touches, 160 yards, throwing a reception for good measure. So it is just incredible to see these guys perform at this level against a high-quality opponent. John Carroll's no slouch. So, we look ahead to Canton, big matchup. River Falls is going to put stress on the North Central defense like they do every defense. I don't think North Central is going to have a problem scoring. Hopkins, they drove through River Falls defense pretty well, and I don't think Hopkins is head and shoulders above North Central's offense. So I think North Central is going to score. I think we could look at a pretty entertaining, high-scoring Stag Bowl coming up. So it was a great day, a lot of fun, and I sit next to Eli Rennick's family and his crew, his posse that's there. And that play where he took that ball and rambled down for 60 yards, I mean, we were going nuts. None of us saw the following kickoff. We didn't see the kneel down. The teams were off the field before we settled down. It was awesome. His mom is electric, just big, vivacious smile. Dad's great guy, good quality people. And it was really, really a lot of fun to celebrate that with them.
Popping bottles in the Soliday Suite. I got it. Yeah, there's a few things. I mean, you talked about JP Sullivan. I thought it was interesting just how much he influences on the field. But like you talked about, it didn't necessarily show up, in the stats, right? He had 5 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, that pass breakup. But where it does show up is the pressure he gets with 5 quarterback hurries. And I was a little surprised. I mean, John Carroll did a nice job of keeping Nick Semptimphelter upright the entire game. But again, he brings more pressure than anyone else. And the other thing I thought was interesting with John Carroll was Tyron Montgomery, and just how they were able to get him into space and get the ball into his hands. And it's like, a motion, like a speed out, on a straight run, and just get it out to him as quick as you could. And, and just let him be an athlete. He had a nice day with 10 for 136. But what I thought was interesting, I saw a stat earlier today on X that talked about Nick Semptimphelter. He now has the all-time record in college football for single season completion percentage, 77.9. That beat Mac Jones, 77.4 in 2020. So I thought that was a unique, stat here for him. So, yeah, that's a great game. It was a fun one. All right. Well, let's before we head over to, why don't we kick it to Mikey first, and we'll come back and we'll talk about the Gagliardi finalists here. So, Mikey, let's kick it to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Matt. That was a nice little transition there. So yeah, fantastic game. I was at the River Falls and Johns Hopkins football game, and just a lot to go over with this one. This was a really special environment, special to be a part of. I want to give a huge thank you to Wisconsin River Falls, and everything that they allowed me to do this season on behalf of this podcast and a couple other podcasts that I do. I got to see River Falls in person 6 times this season. And Trent Jackson at River Falls made a lot of that happen for us. I sent him an email pretty late on Friday saying, "Hey, I think I'm going to make it over there. Can you still snag me a credential and a sideline pass?" And he made that happen. So huge shout out to them. They run such a high level, professional, classy, administrative athletic office over there. It's one of the best to work with for sure. So getting into this game a little bit, kind of setting the stage for what happened in River Falls and what we were able to experience there. So, as I'm driving down there, it's about an hour drive from me, right down to I-94. This is a stretch of road that I've driven twice a week for the last 3 years, drive it all the time. And as I'm driving there in my pickup truck, I'm noticing that my truck is all over the road. Like, not just like a slight gust of wind, but like kind of struggling to keep it straight. And I noticed the semis, the trailers are moving. I'm like, man, it is really, really windy out here. And it wasn't just a gust thing, it was constant. And then as I got into River Falls and finally got out of my truck at a gas station, I got there a little early and had some time to kill. So I went inside to grab a snack, and I noticed right away the wind just blew my door open. I'm like, holy cow, this is the real deal. And I started to think about while I was inside, like, man, kicking, punting, even throwing the football is gonna be dang near impossible. Uh, they were saying 35-mile-per-hour winds, but geez, it felt, I don't know if it was the cold air or what, but it felt stronger than that. It was funny, as I went in that gas station, actually, there was a couple old guys in the corner, and they were actually talking about the game. They were saying that the Falcons whatever play just down the road here today. Are you gonna go to that? Oh no, too cold or whatever. They're making conversation in the line, checkout line, and as I was in all my bundled up gear, I was thinking, man, they maybe they did make the right decision, because this wind chill was no joke. I saw something that someone else posted that it was like 15 below zero wind chill, and it felt like every bit of that. Last weekend when River Falls had that crazy cold, I was up north doing some outdoor activities, and it felt much colder yesterday than it did that last weekend when we had the historic cold. It was just nail bitingly cold. And I think the River Falls Stadium, as you walk in there, it's really it's worst case for a wind game like that. There's no buildings around the stadium. There's no trees around the stadium. It is wide open. It is flat. It is wide open. It's a very unique setup that they have where it's not surrounded by anything. It's not in a bowl, nothing. So the wind there can just totally take over a game, and we saw that early. Johns Hopkins and River Falls both missed an extra point. Johns Hopkins missed two field goals. One of them, the football was so cold that when he kicked it, it wasn't a long field goal, maybe 30 yards, maybe less. He kicked it and it sounded like he was kicking a brick, just absolutely nothing on it, and it ended up being short. And the next time they tried to kick a field goal, the wind just took it, and it was going pretty good, and the wind just took it, boom, gone. The very first pass that Bay Harvey was to throw that day, he dropped back and he let one rip towards the sideline. It was a crosswind, so he was throwing it with, or as the direction the wind was going, and the wind just sailed the ball. I think it almost went out of the stadium. It just sailed into the track. Something you would never see from Bay Harvey, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, how are they going to be able to do this?" But it didn't matter for both the quarterbacks. You could tell that there was kind of a figuring out process of how to keep the ball down and throw into that wind. And lo and behold, Caleb Blaha sets the all-time Wisconsin River Falls passing yards record for a single game with 520 yards passing in some of the most ridiculous conditions I've ever seen. I've been to windy games. I've felt 35-mile-per-hour winds, but it's always a gust where, oh, there's a really strong gust of wind. Well, then it kind of dies down. No, this was steady the entire game with nowhere to hide. It was frankly brutal. My fingers, my toes were just totally frozen. It was hard to even type out the tweets I was trying to send. But getting into this game, the River Falls fans, they really showed out. They had 3,000 people in attendance almost. And keep in mind, there's no students on campus. The finals were over. They left for break. Graduation already happened. And this is a really small town. This is a town of 17,000 people. So to see 3,000 people in attendance, it was just it kind of shocked me. And I had never been to a Division III football game that was that loud. It really was so special to be a part of it. I don't know if the ESPN cameras could really capture it. I've played on a field at Whitewater with 19,000 people there. I've been to a Whitewater game with 20,000. At Eau Claire, we have a 500 member band, a band that's larger than Ohio State's, that plays nonstop right on the field. We have no track right there. It's crazy loud. I have never been to a game that was that loud. 3,000 people in every single play from the opening kickoff to the game-winning touchdown was just it was mayhem. It was first and 10, and if the Johns Hopkins had first and 10, and if they got a 2-yard run and they had a pretty good stop on defense, it was everyone standing up, yeah. It was just really a special environment. You could tell how much this meant to this small town, this small community in this campus. It was just so cool, and I hope that this podcast is a way to show listeners how special that was. That might not come through on ESPN's broadcast. A really, really special environment. Getting deeper into the game here, Johns Hopkins, man, what a fantastic team. Truly a fantastic team. I think, looking at this year as a whole, I think at the top of this conference, at the top of D3, you have North Central, River Falls, Johns Hopkins, and I think you have a big gap, a big gap after that, and then you have 4, 5, and 6. This Johns Hopkins team is legit. They deserve to play in the Stag Bowl if it was possible for them to do it. They are that good. They are complete. Enright and Crotty at receivers, outstanding to see them in person. It was so cool. Bay Harvey throws. He is the best pure thrower of the football I've seen in this division in person. He was throwing absolute darts across the field into this wind on an absolute line. Just a truly special talent to see at this level. Inside the trenches on both sides of the ball, Johns Hopkins really they outright owned the trenches for the majority of that game on both sides of the ball, which is something that River Falls hasn't allowed them to have that happen to them since maybe the very early part of this season. Johns Hopkins has huge size on both lines. They ran the ball really well all game. 233 rush yards, 5.2 yards per carry overall for Johns Hopkins. They were outstanding. They had the ball for 35 and a half minutes time of possession. Now, some of that was because River Falls was frankly scoring really fast, but that also a lot of that was their run game. I mean, they were able to get behind Jeff Schroeder, the running back. He went for 25 carries, 160 yards, touchdown, and 6.5 yards per carry. Really, really outstanding stuff. But when you looked at who they were facing, the Top Gun offense, it was everything but that. And the video game like numbers that Caleb Blaha and company put up against a Final Four team, the third best team in the country, something that no one all season has done to Johns Hopkins. And they've played some really good teams. John Carroll, Susquehanna twice, Salisbury, Springfield, all the teams in their conference, Carnegie Mellon, Ursinus, Franklin and Marshall, really, really good offenses. And no one all year put up the numbers that River Falls did. 630 yards of total offense. Blaha passes for 620 or 520 like I mentioned, and 6 total touchdowns. In those conditions, I couldn't even believe it. You know, when they were punting the ball, there was actually about 5 or 6 punts in this game. It wasn't a no punt shootout. There was some defensive stops here. Johns Hopkins went to the strategy of punting the ball where they would just punt it about 8 feet off the turf and just a line drive punt and just let it bounce and let it run, because there was no use in messing around and trying to get it up in the air and all of a sudden the wind takes it and you've got a crappy punt. It just was more efficient for them to just kick little line drives. It was really interesting to watch how Johns Hopkins was really utilizing the wind to their advantage, and that really was an advantage. But yeah, Blaha again, just outstanding. And in that game as well, Caleb Blaha breaks the all-time Division III record for total yards by a quarterback in a season. Some really impressive quarterbacks have played in this league. Obviously, Luke Lanen being the most accomplished one that just wrapped up his career, and Caleb Blaha now owns this record. He's the best player in the country. He's the best quarterback in the country. And to be able to see a player like this up close in person all these weeks, it was really special. And I felt honored again to be here for this game. One thing, looking ahead to next week and what they're going to face with North Central, River Falls really showed that they could win this game in a variety of ways. They had multiple drives, I think 3, where they scored in 5 or less plays. And they do this every game. Boom, 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 in the end zone. But then they also had drives of 98 yards for a touchdown, and then the game-winning drive, 95 yards for a touchdown. They've shown that they can do that all year, too. They did that against multiple uh, playoff teams this season. I went back and I looked through River Falls' schedule this year, and now currently today, they've played 9 playoff teams, if you can believe that. 9. Almost an entire schedule of just playoff teams. If you want to throw in UW Stout, who's a bowl winner, that'd get you to perfect 10. North Central in a couple weeks will get them to 10. In those 9 playoff games, they're 9-0 in those games. They're averaging over 47 points per game, and they're giving up less than 21. And not only that, just speaking about just not only the winning, but how they've won those games, it's been so consistent. They've seen all sorts of coverages. They've had games in those 9 where Caleb Blaha's ran for close to 200 yards, and they've had games like a couple weeks ago against Wheaton where he only carried the ball 2 times. So They do not care how they play. They're going to play based on their opponent, and then they're going to maximize their strengths around what the opponent does on defense. It gives them the best chance to win the game. As I started thinking about River Falls and what they're going to face next week, I want to kind of run down this River Falls roster a little bit to try to emphasize to fans and maybe NCC fans, Division III fans who haven't seen River Falls in person, and some stuff that doesn't come through on ESPN tape, and that's the size of this River Falls team. This this is Division I size. You will not see a team this big. I don't know if anywhere in the country. North Central has never seen a team this big. Here is the Wisconsin River Falls wide receivers, okay? 6'5", 250, 6'5", 210, 6'5", 230, 6'3", 6'3". Oh, and their small slot guy, 6 foot. On defense, their secondary, safety 6'5", safety 6'3". Their little corners, 6'1", 6'1", 6 foot, 6 foot. Just huge guys. On the offensive line, 6'9", 320, 6'6", 285, 6'5", 315, 6'4", 300, 6'3", 285. Big dudes. On the defensive line, 6'4", 290, 6'4", 250, 6'6", 305, 6'3", 260. This team is absolutely huge. You can't see it on film. You have to be there in person to see this size. These are Division I quality players playing in Division III, and I think that's a big reason why they got through the gauntlet of 9 now playoff teams going 9-0 against those teams. It's just because of how purely big and physical they are. The last point I want to touch on before I send this back to the group is how cool of a story this is for River Falls. Obviously, they were 0-10, 1-9, 2-8 for many years before having this season. But just last year, remember, this was the first team out of the playoffs. And when we talk about MPI and the pitfalls of MPI, which there are many, I think sometimes we get caught up in the top of the standings and why isn't so and so team number 1 instead they're number 3? And all that stuff's important and there are pitfalls of that. But I am much more concerned about personally is let's get the best teams in the tournament. And just look, last year, River Falls and Wheaton sat at home. This year, River Falls is in the Stag Bowl. Wheaton was in the Elite Eight. MPI has much more bigger issues, I think, with getting the bottom. The bottom of the thing is getting just the best teams in. Matt Walker, the head coach of River Falls, he talked about in the post game where last year when they were left out of the playoffs, he thought they could have done a run like this. They'd returned a lot of these guys, and they thought they had this type of run in them. So this was really building over an off season where they really thought they got screwed, and they had a chance to be a really special team just a year ago, and now they get to do that. Speaking on the city of River Falls, before I send it back, this is a small town, and the vibes of this town, it has just totally transformed into a true football town. It's very like Americana vibes in that city right now. Matt Walker talked on an interview a few days ago about how he can't go anywhere in this town, Quick Trip, the gas station, the grocery store, without getting stopped with someone in the community saying, "Hey, good luck. Hey, how's it going? Hey, how's the team looking? Can you beat these guys? Keep it going." And you really felt that. I had to make 3 stops in River Falls before or after I was leaving. And in each of those stops, community members were talking about the football team. And when I was leaving the game, cars were honking their horns down Main Street. This is a small town of 17,000 people in northwest Wisconsin, and that college is 5,300 people. So 1 in 3 people in this town are students. It's the definition of a small town, a college town. It's a public school. Almost all their players on the roster are from public schools. These are kids that are going to school for a good price at a small college town. This is not the hodgepodge preppy wealthy private school team that we've seen a lot of times, or sometimes can get a bad narrative in Division III about private schools and preppy kids and stuff like that. this is the opposite. This is a very blue collar team and city, and I feel really fortunate for the town of River Falls to be able to get to experience this, because I think it's just a really special thing that we don't often get a lot of times in Division III. We have a lot of schools that are focused in big metropolitan areas, and this is just something different. I think it's pretty cool. Can they beat North Central? I'm not sure. And North Central has just an embarrassment of riches, especially on offense. McNeil, Wilson, Skokna. Can they beat them? I'm not sure. Regardless, truly a special team. And no matter what happens in the Stag Bowl, River Falls is a really special storyline this year.
It's funny you talk about River Falls and the town. It is a cool town. I've drove through it a number of times. And I take my family to fish up in northern Wisconsin. We go up through northern Minnesota. We go up through Wisconsin and cut over Superior to Duluth and head up to Rainy Lake. And yeah, it's a gorgeous town. You blink, you might miss it. I haven't had a chance to go up kind of through Main Street because we take 65 on the way out, on the outside there. But you do get a sense for, how small it is, especially when you're pulling like a 30-foot, camper behind you, down through some of those main streets. But yeah, it's an awesome community. We try and stop there, and grab a bite to eat. Um, Kind of nestled in the middle of nowhere in kind of western Wisconsin there. So I think when we think about Division III football, the communities, the support is, when you think about great, D3 programs, you find great local communities. And I think where you see a lack of local engagement, with the school back to the community, or from the community to the athletic programs, um, I feel like they go hand in hand. So, that's probably the hot ticket, right? Is a
For
River
sure.
Falls game. So, um, now, couple of things. With that game, the question I wrote down was, were the offenses that good, or were the defenses that mediocre? That's a lot of points.
Yeah, it is. I really do think the offenses were that good. I definitely a good question. I thought River Falls struggled to tackle, and Johns Hopkins was they won the trenches on both sides of the ball, like I mentioned. If North Central with JP Sullivan and the absolute tough nosed dudes that they have, I mean the pure physicality and strength that North Central plays with, if they have the type of performance in the trenches that they had against Johns Hopkins, they're in a world of trouble, because they don't know, or they're not necessarily ready for the level of athlete and pure skill and size that North Central is going to bring. So I think it was more so great offense, but you have to have a little bit of bad defense to score that many points. So definitely a little bit of both, but I'm going to lean towards great offense. Bay Harvey was just an outstanding quarterback. Those were the two best quarterbacks in the country, no doubt in my mind. Caleb Blaha and Bay Harvey, outstanding athletes.
Now, was that who was it that caught that when the last touchdown across the side, kind of made that leaping catch? Was that Blake Rohrer that caught
Yeah,
that last
9
one?
catches, 236 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Former basketball player. No, again, one of those big guys, 6'3" and can
Hops.
jump like a basketball player. Yeah,
He was recruited to
he's
play
been doing that
basketball,
all
right?
year. Yeah,
He
yeah,
walked
he was
on
a
at
basketball
school.
player. Yeah. Yeah, he's just a fantastic athlete. They have a lot of
Nice
those
job.
guys there that are kind of just hidden guys where, Blake Rohr's kind of been he's kind of like the best receiver in the country that no one's talking about. No one knows his name, kind of goes under the radar because they throw it to so many different guys. But he's been making plays like that all year for them. So I wasn't surprised
Hmm.
to see him make that play, but again, North Central is going to be a totally different test, and they're going to have a level of athlete and size that, that might be a step up from Johns Hopkins. So I definitely still have questions about, if they're really ready for this.
The other thing that comes into play here is at this level, these teams that are this good at the top, part of the reason they're there is because of the coaching. And so you have to also bring in that aspect of matching up the coaches and what they bring to the table as well. So, in a regular season game, that sometimes doesn't come into play as much. But when you're talking a couple of weeks here to prepare for the Stag Bowl and you've got that time to really go in depth, whoever's coaching staff comes up with the better game plan can offset some of those imbalances that happen on the physical side of things. So that's the other piece of it. Obviously, when you get to a championship game like this, there's a ton of little components that you can look at, but that's another one. And I'll tell you, I don't know much about the River Falls staff, so I can't really speak to them. I can speak to what is going on the North Central staff, and that's been clear and evident to see for years. But that's just one more piece, one more aspect of it.
And how about, with North Central again, I think something that maybe you could speak on too, David, is their experience. A lot of the guys in the team, they've been in a Stag Bowl, they know how the travel works, they know how the hotels work, they know what that level of competition looks like, they know what it takes to win those games, the coaches do. Where again, I guess River Falls keep, saying that this doesn't really matter as far as they go, but this is a whole new thing where they've never been here before. They don't know how it operates. They don't know what it takes to win at this level. You look at the professionals. We always talk about how it takes a team to win a Super Bowl, a quarterback to win a Super Bowl. It takes a year to get over that hump. Can they just get over the hump right away? And how much does experience really matter? I think it's important.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, I don't really like to go back and relive the Stag Bowl against Cortland, but North Central came into that after a incredibly hard road to the Stag Bowl, and they were banged up. Three All-Americans on defense, not really playing in the game at all. We didn't have a kicker that was healthy. A lot of issues. But on the other side, Cortland came in red hot. I mean, red hot. They were on a roll, and through the playoffs, that roll just became more and more and more exciting for them. And for them, they added that level of excitement to their talent pool. And they had NFL receivers, for crying out loud, on that team. And, so they rode that wave. And as I sit here and I look at it, yeah, I'm the North Central alum. I'm the homer. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to tell you every day, I have faith that North Central is going to win this game. Is it going to be, 3-4 score difference? I don't think so, just because I think River Falls has that momentum. They have the talent. They've got that the rhythm on offense that they pick up and stick with pretty consistently. And that, I think, is going to be the key to the game. I don't think River Falls is going to be able to stop North Central. I think it's going to be on North Central's defense to get some stops on River Falls offense.
Yeah, it's got to be. It's got to be. If I'm River Falls, I know how great Wilson is. All American, deserves it, 100%. One of the best 5 quarterbacks in the country. Skokna, Gagliardi finalist, deserves it. One of the best 5 receivers in the country. I worry about them last. I circle McNeil. I circle him twice. I highlight him. I bold him. I italicize it. Stop McNeil. Let everything else fall as it may. But I mean, he's just outstanding. I said on the spaces on Thursday with crew that, we talk about Wilson, we talk about Skokna, but the best player on that offense is McNeil. And when he's running like this, that whole offense it's going around him. It's not about the pass game. It's about that run game, and everything else flows off it. If you can't stop McNeil, you can't stop North Central. And that kid, I don't know how they're going to keep him in Naperville for a few more years because, NIL, FBS schools. This kid can play anywhere. He's the real deal.
Yeah, it's interesting. I went back and forth on X a little bit, kind of jabbing a little bit on some guys talking about where did he come from, but we saw him last year in mop-up duty, 5th string running back last year, and he was the freshman of the year in the CCIW, playing in the fourth quarter. I saw him break off a 95-yard touchdown run, and I was like, oh my gosh. But when you have the guys ahead of you that you have now, and then Sean Allen's been hurt pretty much all season. He's been nursing this injury, and we thought he's gotten back to health, and then all of a sudden he re-aggravates it. So he's been up and down. So McNeil's been the guy all season. And then we go 2, 3, 4 deep. You know, we got the other guys coming in that can do it as well. But Donovan McNeil has been the one doing it the best, no doubt about it. And it has been a pleasure to watch this guy. So sitting where I sit, right on the row down in front of me, there were about 7 JCU guys, 3, 4 younger guys, and I think some of their dads. And they left. they left before halftime. They were like, "Oh, it's been fun, guys. See ya." But they turned around and they started asking all kinds of questions about Donovan McNeil, because they were like, "This guy is incredible. There's like his balance. He's breaking tackles. There's a guy that's got him wrapped up and he spins out of it." They're sitting and they were like, they couldn't believe it. They said that he's the best running back that they've seen. Hey, it's their view, but I'm like, yeah, we think he's pretty good.
Yep, Gladdy. One of those things where it's like, hey, Gladdy's on our team.
Absolutely.
Now, David, I mean, when you heard Mikey talking about the size of River Falls, what was kind of going through your head? Was it like,
so
we got some pretty big guys ourselves?
Yeah, when we played Roosevelt at the beginning of last season, I was walking into the stadium as Roosevelt was walking out. And I was like, holy shit, these guys are huge. And North Central put a beat down on them. And I, at first, thought, that size could become an issue as the game wore on, but it didn't. And as a matter of fact, after the game, when I was walking out, 2 different people, independent of each other, they were shaking their head and they said, you guys have one hell of a football team. And so there is something to be said about size, but when you look at all of the levers available for North Central to pull, it is, it's a wealth of talent and it's a wealth of riches. So, and that's kind of where I was going with my comment about coaching. Our coaching staff is incredible. The Bethel game, one of the things that I noticed was the Bethel linebackers were shooting the gap when our offensive linemen were pulling. They were able to come through, and on those slow developing plays, they were able to catch up from behind, take down the runner. So what did North Central do? Adjusted the blocking scheme. Boom. Problem solved. They're just, and the other thing, we haven't talked about this a lot, but having the iPads on the sidelines, I mean, they're looking at those things. This is in real time that they're looking, and they're able to make these adjustments on the fly. So these things are happening during the game, and they don't wait for halftime. And it's been, as I have sat and watched this staff and the adjustments that they make, I'm incredibly impressed. And Brad Spencer is a very meticulous guy, very detailed, and his level of preparation, there might be people that match him, but there's nobody that beats him.
In-game adjustments are huge. I mean, the great teams do it well. Hopkins was also pretty good throughout the season at doing in-game adjustments as well. And I mean, that's what I think, to Mikey's point before, that's the difference in tiers of talent, right? You got the top teams who are adjusting real time versus the good teams that might not make those adjustments until halftime.
Yeah. Well, and the other part of that too, Tony, you're right, the talent, but it's that mental capacity. Those guys have to have a good enough grasp of the game of football. Like I said, and I was kind of joking, throwing some jokes in about it, but watching JP Sullivan, and I because it's JP Sullivan, I watched the defensive line a fair amount. I was a strong safety, And I rarely watch what's happening and developing in the secondary. I'm watching that defensive line. Maverick Ole is solid. I mean, these guys are all four of them. They're awesome. And so I just happen to be watching, and I'm like, oh my God, he's read the. Oh yes, boom! And in real time, I'm seeing it, and I'm talking about it, and these people next to me are like, what? I said, J.P. Sullivan. I said, he sniffed that thing out like I sniff for breakfast, man. That's exactly what I said during the game. And it's that type of football intelligence that allows a coach to make in-game adjustments, because those guys are so well schooled on the game. When they talk about making those adjustments, it's one thing to identify it and make it, it's another thing to execute it. And so you have to be able to do all those things in order for the in-game adjustments to work.
Well, and I think you hit on another topic, is just the fundamentals this weekend was night and day above the prior rounds within the playoffs. So I mean, so you do have the two best teams. They were the most fundamentally sound, tackling, blocking, in all phases of the game. And sometimes it just comes down to, especially if you're in the secondary, right? It's a choice, like that throw to Blake Rohr, the free safety that was over the top. He had a choice, and he was going to play the ball. Rohr just made a phenomenal, kind of undercut, jump up, catch that you're not going to make 10 out of 10 times. You're probably going to make that once or twice out of 10. He just made a phenomenal play. But it wasn't, I don't believe it was a wrong read. There's so many great fundamental things that are happening in the game that, especially just from a tackling, perspective, you still see it regardless of where you're at. You see the shoulder tackles, and it just absolutely infuriates me when I see that stuff. But it seemed like this week it was less about, hey, the team was, less fundamentally, solid than, River Falls, North Central. We're just awesome in that aspect. Now, the other thing I was thinking a little bit about, let's kind of move on and talk a little bit about the Stag Bowl, because it was going around in our chat around travel. Right. I mean, it's in Canton this year. It's been down in Dallas. It's been, like warm weather. That's like, is it better to keep it, somewhere in the Midwest where, it just so happens that it's North Central and River Falls. So that's a pretty decent commute, just for both of them, as opposed to going down, somewhere and playing in warm weather. Cause you hear so much about folks like, for example, from Mike Shaw, he hears so much about like, oh, the Isthmus Bowl is paywalled. Well, that paywall funds, the concept of that bowl game. And people are bitching about it, but yet it took me an hour before the game at the Starbucks across from the hotel to get a damn coffee. And it's like, people are rolling out of there $50-$60 worth of Starbucks. And it's like, you're bitching about $10-$15 to watch a game. Like, give me a break. But it's a little bit different now, right? When you think about, traveling and doing a lot of that stuff when it's timed, having to take, maybe Monday off work, some of those things. What's just kind of the group's, thought around, does location matter, or should they have, some neutral sites that are either domed, that are, commutable? I know that's a little bit easier said than done, because a lot of times those places are booked out a year in advance. But I don't know, thoughts just from the group on, like, Tony, you're in New York, right? So
Yes, sir.
would you go to Canton? Would you go to Dallas if Utica was playing?
If Utica was playing, I'd go to Zimbabwe, but I'm wired, and I think we were saying that, right, different, like I think there's two different types of fans, right? There's like fans of like the parents, the kids that played, that I feel now connected to the team, that even now, like if they were in the Natty, even though my son graduated, I'm there, right? I have more of a connection, I think, with the team in that respect. Would the average fan, I think, travel? I don't think so, right? So I think the people who are traveling are the players' families, close relatives, stuff like that. Some alum, obviously, that are still connected to the program. I don't think the average fan would travel that far. But me personally, I wouldn't care where they were. If they were in the big one. I mean, I when my son was playing, I was to every home game and every away game. Did not matter who we were playing, how far it was, a bowl game, whatever it was. I was driving, I was staying, I was doing that. So I personally would, but I don't think everyone is built for that. And then, like you said, the schedule a little bit, right? Like taking the Monday off, like it's a big ask. It's a big ask for folks traveling.
Well, I think it's interesting. You look at, um, like I go a couple years back, and I think about when the Vikings were in the SMS Bowl. Um, they had put out to all the students to try and get like it was something like $25, and they were gonna take chartered buses up that paid for your ticket and ride back. 0 inches couldn't fill a bus. I mean, you can fill a bus. Like, you got to be
That's
kidding
wild.
me.
Yeah.
So, I just wonder, like, when I was going to Augustana from 2001 to 2005, like, the football game was a place to be. The basketball game was the place to be. Like, that's where social happened. I don't know if social happens at these at Division 3 schools in that same way. Um, or you have to be in a situation where you're in a town like Wisconsin River Falls that has the community feel. I mean, it's got Texas vibes, right? It's like
Yeah.
shutting down, going to the game, here we go. um it's hard to find that, and it's been such a struggle. I've noticed in just across the board going to different games, like there's just a lack of like student participation. So um, are they going to go down and travel for a game like that? Probably not. Timing plays a little bit into it, as well. But I don't know, Mikey. You're cut from a younger cloth. What do you
I
think?
mean, in my opinion, I personally, I want to see championship games, especially. I want all the weather taken out of the question. I want to see either warm climate or domes because I want to see just the teams. I don't want to see rain. I don't want to see snow. I don't want to see wind. I don't want to see frigid temps. I want to see here's two teams on a neutral field with the neutral playing conditions. Let's go because no matter what the conditions are, it's always going to favor somebody. If it's raining, that's going to play into someone's benefit more than someone else's. If it's 20 degrees, that's going to favor someone else more than someone else. Yeah, they're both playing in it, but someone's built better for that. You know what I mean? So I prefer domes or warm climates. And I think the Super Bowl, again with the NFL, they've kind of modeled that strategy. If you look at where they choose to put the Super Bowl, it's almost always indoors domes. I remember when the New York and Meadowlands, when they built that new stadium out there, they had to fight really hard to get the Super Bowl there. And when it came there in February, it was like a 30-degree day, and it was a big controversy of, is this fair? Do we allow this? Are you getting a true representation of the team? So I prefer a dome or a warm climate. Crew and I had found a really cool domed spot. It's like a Dallas Cowboys practice field, practice dome, side dome that Texas high school championships are played in. They just had a bowl game there, a FBS bowl game there, and it seats like 5,000 people. It's indoors, it's in Dallas. It has, so it's a big city, has all the, hotel accommodations you would need, and it's beautiful, like state of the art, beautiful. And I'm like, man, that's the perfect place because it's not a huge stadium where, the D3 fan base can't fill it and it feels really empty. It would be loud there. Fans would be right on top of them. And it's down south where, fans are up north, to get a casual fan down there. I'm thinking, hey, if I'm a Utica fan, like up there, and it's January and I'm sick of the cold, well, heck, I might make a vacation out of it and go to a warm climate and make it a weekend deal. But if it's in Ohio, where it's like, am I gonna drive 10 hours to go to some place the same temperature as here, doesn't offer a whole lot. I'm a casual fan of the team. I'm not so sure, but heck, if it's in Florida, we're there for the weekend. Bring the kids. So that's kind of how I view it.
Good take.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if they could find, even somewhere in the Midwest. Like I think about Northern Iowa has the Unidome up in Cedar Falls. That's a great facility. And there's a lot of places like that. All throughout the Midwest that you could almost say is like a neutral site. Now, Canton's awesome. Just from up here, like you're in Canton, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they approach it, David.
Yeah, one of the things Pat Coleman's pretty good about reminding people is that the community has to have interest. The community has to put in a bid to host it. And he's right. But I've been in sales my entire professional career. All right. So, and if you pay attention to what happens in your community, your community oftentimes is going out and trying to attract certain types of businesses to come into your community. All right. So the NCAA could be more active in going out and selling the product to try to initiate that conversation to get more people interested in hosting. So I agree, you have to have interest from a host city to put in a bid, but I also agree that more can be done on the NCAA side to initiate those conversations to ensure people are fully aware of the opportunity and to help sell that concept. So, and Mikey brings up a good point. I want to see the best mano a mano and take out the weather. The travel is always going to be an issue, is always going to be a problem in those types of situations. There's some schools that are better positioned to bring more people. You've got the NJAC, you got the WIAC, you've got I think the NJAC, the average enrollment of the schools there is it's over 9,000. The WIAC is about 8,000. When you look at the CCIW, the average enrollment of those schools is like 2,600. That's going to drop, I think, when you take WashU out of it. But so if you look at the last 5 classes where you're going to get most of the interest from recent alum, so you take 5 years of the number of people there. I mean, you're talking for the WIAC, you're talking about potentially 40,000 people. You're talking about 13,000 from the CCIW. So that comes into play a little bit too in terms of who's playing and what that draw is going to be. And then the next level is you look at North Central. We had a ton of people in Houston in 2019. I mean, we were at the B-Dubs bar. I mean, we owned that. We had, 80, 90 people in that place. And last year, barely any of those guys show up. So you get used to success. You take it for granted. You don't make the commitment to make the trip. I haven't missed one. I won't if it's at all possible. But that's me. That's not everybody. And, I can't judge other people for the decisions that they make. I wish more people would attend. And on the student side, it's incredibly hard. There's a couple of other schools like North Central. I mean, these kids, they start class January 5th. These players go back and they're missing their first day of class because they're probably not going to get back in time for classes on Monday the 5th. The support, aspects of it, the dance, the band, cheerleader, all those guys, last year, they got on a bus. They arrived Sunday afternoon, 24-hour bus ride down to Houston, went to the game. After the game, they got on a bus and drove back 24 hours. Incredible. Wow. Man, that sucks. That really sucks. To have a game on Sunday night like that before school starts, that sucks. And I know all schools aren't like that. In our particular case, for our students, sucks. But I will also tell you this. You go to North Central games, you don't see a student section. It's not there. It doesn't exist. When I played, the guys were there. The soccer team was there. The basketball team was there. Everybody was there. They went to the game. But social means something different today, Matt. You're absolutely right. And it's not attending the games. And, I'm old school. Me and Tony, we go back a few years. I yearn for those days. I go to the high school basketball games. I'm in Indiana, for crying out loud. and I go to the high school basketball games. When I was in high school, the place was, I mean, it wasn't always like packed to the rafters, but I mean, there were a lot of people there. You go there
Mhm.
now, and I'm like, holy crap. I mean, I can hear people talking 30 feet away because there's so few people in the gym. I'm like, this is embarrassing. That's just my take.
Yep.
It's a different time today.
David Putnam, Bowling Alone. That's a good book that'll talk about that. Well, hey, we'll wrap this up here with a quick Gagliardi chat and we'll jump off. But, Brad Spencer wants to pull a baller move. Call the McCaskey family for the Bears. They got that new stadium they're going to put up in, beautiful Gary, Indiana.
That's a negotiating
See if you can get the bid there, and keep it home. So, all right,
we'll see.
Let's send it out with this. So, the Gagliardi finalists, Caleb Blaha from River Falls, quarterback Jack Curtis from Carlton, Bay Harvey from John Hopkins, Monty Quinn from Curry, and wide receiver Albert Rundell from Bethel. Tony, who's your Gagliardi?
I mean, I was leaning. Obviously, I was only on Hopkins, so I was definitely leaning towards Bay Harvey, especially going into this week. But I gotta tell you, man, like I think Blaha kind of stole my heart there a little bit on. I didn't. At one point in the game, I thought this kid. And I know we're trying to look at the whole season, not just one game, but just when you see a kid like that, and I know some of us were kind of like, hey, it's kind of weird kid with the baggy sleeves, and but what a gamer. I mean, just to see like how when it all mattered, right? On a program who's never been there before. And I think we talked about it before about experience and whatever. When it all mattered, like he put it out there, like he with this game, I think he got my vote. So I'd go Blaha.
David.
Yeah, I think Blaha is probably in line to get it. He's had an incredible year with the numbers. The one piece of this whole Gagliardi Trophy picture, and I've been asking it actually for years. I've been making the statement to people that there is an off the field element to the Gagliardi Trophy. It's not just about player performance, but we don't hear any of that. We don't get that in the announcements. We get very little. Sorry, daughter's calling.
Is that one of those you got to do this, David? is that the operator calling you in?
Yeah, it's
page through to solid
party line.
Page through to solid
It's the party line. Sometimes I have to wait because someone else is on the line. We had that when I was a kid. True story. I got on the phone once. I said, "Dad, someone's on the phone." He goes, "Hang up." He goes, "We share a line." I'm like, "What?" I was like 7 years old. But it's I would love to see a more complete picture of the off the field aspect, because not only does it help us better understand the off the field aspect of the player, I think that it might even help promote for some guys who don't necessarily do much in that area. If they think, hey, that's something I might want to aspire to one day, maybe if I go out and I do some things in the community, that'll help build. And I'd love to see that part of it.
Mikey, I think we all know, but I'll ask you anyway.
Yeah, I think it's Caleb Blaha. He's the best player in the country. I mean, bar none. We saw what it took for Luke Lanen to win a couple, and Caleb Blaha, he's that type of guy. He puts up that types of numbers every week. They're gonna play now 10 playoff teams. He's done it to everybody. He's beaten everybody. He's these types of video game numbers. He's done it to every opponent he's faced, and I think it's just kind of a shame that the voting was in like last week or a couple weeks ago, and I think that should wait. It's not announced until the Stag Bowl. Why don't we postpone voting until after as many games can be played as possible? Because again, this performance where he breaks the all-time Division III total yards for a season record and breaks the school passing record, that doesn't get factored in. Let's let all the games play out before we can vote on that stuff. So I think Caleb Blaha is the best player in the country, and he certainly deserves the reward. Another thing is with a lot of these past winners, we know about all their talent around them. You know, the average D3 player, they know about whoever's receivers are, whoever's defenders are. Can the average Division 3 player name who the River Falls running back is, or a receiver, or anyone on their defense? They just know Blaha.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I'm going to go 4 for 4 here with Blaha. Just, you take a look at someone like Monty Quinn. Yes, he had 2,400 yards. Yes, he averaged 200, and 22 yards a game. The level of talent, I'm sorry, it just wasn't there. 500 yards against, a one of the worst, teams in the country. It's like, do you necessarily like? It's cool, but I don't know. A little negative Nancy there, but it's the level of talent where like Blaha has done it against everyone in the WIAC. He's continuing to do it, here, in the playoffs, and he does it for the playing game for the national championship, and so it's like I think if could you remove Monty Quinn, and Curry probably has the same exact year. You remove Caleb Blaha, they're not playing in this game next weekend. He's that big of an X factor. He's a Luke Lanen, type talent. And you take someone though like a Jack Curtis. I was thinking about what you said, David, around like kind of off the field stuff, like Jack Curtis from Carleton, the late stage, unfavorable Hodgkin's lymphoma, that battle, just what he went through. Like, yeah, you want to talk about like a comeback player of the year, a truly inspiring story, someone who battled on the field and off the field and had to carry all that weight of his life on the field. Jack Curtis, like, dude, that
Amen.
amazing.
Amen.
But
Hey, and too,
yeah.
just one shout out too. I mean, the quarterback in this day and age has become so critically important to the operation of the offense. And these types of awards, 99% of the time, 99.9% of the time, go to an offensive player and predominantly the quarterback. And I know we're supposed to be, thinking about this as the best player, but man, I tell you, it's really tough when you see a guy like JP Sullivan. I mean, he gets the honor, All American, and it's great. But I kind of sit there and I'm like, this guy, he's so good, but it's so hard to quantify for like a defensive lineman. And so here's the thing: every game, every single game that North Central has played, the game plan for the offense is factored on how do we control JP Sullivan. Now, if that isn't an impact player, I don't know what is. So when we talk about those impact players, and Caleb Blaha absolutely is, but we don't give those critical players that are head and shoulders above on the defense their due. And it'd be awesome if we, just had an opportunity to do that in some way, shape, or form. But it is what it is. It's always been that way, whether it's the Heisman or the Gagliardi. So, my comments will fall on deaf ears. I get it, but I just had to make the point.
Value above replacement, right? Although that's probably, even within North Central, they just have a slew of talent come from behind. So it's a little different than, a normal, college program. But I mean, you see it with Caleb Blaha. When their backup came in, Ben was it Wesolowski, something like that. He you just kind of felt like, here's Hopkins' time. Here it is. If Blaha doesn't come back in, it's like the gasp of, at the beginning of the year. I think one of us even talked about, whether it's on this or just in the chat, it's like, if Caleb Blaha is healthy at the end of the season, River Falls is likely in this game and has a shot at being national champions. That's it. So anyway, 4 for 4. We'll definitely say that. JP Sullivan, hell of a player. We'll definitely give him that for sure. And again, everybody else who is a Gagliardi Trophy finalist, like, congratulations. You've had a tremendous season. Great players, great athletes, great stewards in the community. So, again, just being on that list says a lot about who they are. So, all right, well, everyone, we are Voices in the Stands. We have gone a little bit over time. So, Carlo, feel better. And everyone else, we'll catch you here next week.